When it comes to the Israel-Hamas conflict, I've heard some of you say it before. I don't care. I'm Canadian. And while I wish it were so simple, the truth is some of the problem is alive and well on Canadian soil. Don't believe me? Take a look at this.
Death to Canada! Death to the United States! And death to Israel!
Burn, burn! Israel, burn, burn! Palestinians will return! Israel is a terrorist state!
Did that have you wondering who's behind such pro-terrorism in Canada and which political forces are doing enough to protect the people from it? I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. Let's talk about it. Recently, I brought you a report about a memorial that took place at a Vancouver synagogue on the one-year anniversary of the October 7th Hamas terrorist attack against Israeli people, including 8 Canadians who lost their lives among the 1,200 who did as well. Now, in that report, I also mentioned that simultaneously, an anti-Israel and what turned out to be an anti-Canadian protest was also taking place about 4 kilometers away in front of the Vancouver Art Gallery. Now that I've had more time to see what actually occurred there, I am disgusted. And here's why.
We are Hezbollah and we are Hamas!
What you just saw there was a protest organized by a pro-Palestinian non-profit in Canada called Samidoun, the Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, a group that freely operates as a non-profit in Canada yet is banned from operating in Germany and has been designated a terrorist organization in Israel and as of October 10th in the Netherlands as well. And its co-founder? She's Vancouver-based. Her name is Charlotte Cates. She's also the international coordinator. And here's some of the things she's been saying.
We demand a free Palestine from the river to the sea. And that we stand with the Palestinian resistance and their heroic and brave action on October 7th. And they said, long live October 7th. And we say today, long live October 7th.
So it's up to us internationally to organize, to demonstrate, to join the struggle, to shut business as usual down, to do everything that we can to stop these imperialist powers and the Zionist regime from continuing their war crimes and genocide.
And on that note,
so what the heck is going on when protesters are actually being extreme and acting out in hate, unlike the peaceful trucker convoys, the leaders of which who spent many days in jails and just got out of the longest mischief trial in history? Well, in British Columbia, both of the leaders contending to be the next premier, that is the incumbent leader David Eby with the BC NDP, and John Rustad, the leader of the Conservative Party of BC, took to social media to condemn the acts, but one certainly took a stronger stance than the other. David Eby said, "This kind of hateful rhetoric is wrong and has no place in our province. We stand together against violence and the glorification of it, and we strive for peace." And in contrast, Mr. Rustad said something more in line with that of federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
Hi, John Rustad here. I'm out in front of the art gallery where last night a mob came and burnt a Canadian flag, threatened Canadians, threatened the United States, threatened Jewish people. I find this sort of violence completely unacceptable. This sort of hate should have no place in British Columbia, and we've had a premier who is silent on this. He refuses to crack down on this in British Columbia. This is unacceptable to us. A Conservative government will make sure we crack down on this type of hate. There is no place for that in British Columbia.
He further put out a statement urging the federal government, that is Trudeau and his buddies, of course, to go ahead and designate Samidoun as a terrorist organization. But we did not see that from Mr. Eby. Is that surprising? Not really. If you recall, back in the spring, his former MLA and the Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Selena Robinson, was being pressured by pro-Palestinian activists to resign after making comments about how horrible life is in Gaza. Who was pressuring her? Well, it was the same protesters behind the protests you've seen there. That's right, they were heavily tied with Samidoun. And it seems as though Eby's government actually caved because he didn't stand by Selena Robinson, at least according to her. And in fact, she ended up resigning anyways from the party, citing reasons of anti-Semitism within and indifference. Now we have the same people who tried to push her out, leading people in the center of Vancouver to applaud burning our nation's flag, as well as calling for the death of Canada, aka death of Canadians, death to the United States, death to Israel, and not just applauding and praising terrorists, but leading people to claim that they are terrorists. Now, joining me to give us a little bit more insight on that horrific pro-terror protest is Masha Kleiner. She is an event coordinator for pro-Israel events, and she was there in counter-protest to what she says is a rising amount of frightening anti-Semitism in the province of British Columbia.
So me and a few friends, we were actually there to counter-protest. I've been saying it for a very long time that these groups are not only anti-Israel or anti-Jews, they're also anti-Canadian. And finally, we've seen such a clear demonstration of it that no one can say otherwise, because I feel like a lot of the mainstream media have been gaslighting us, calling them pro-Palestinian, but there is nothing pro-Palestinian in burning a Canadian flag. We were holding Canadian and Israeli flags and signs calling Hamas and Hezbollah and IRGC terrorist group as it is designated in Canada and many other countries. The so-called protesters did not agree with us. They called us all racist and yelled at us. There was police luckily there to stand in between. Samidoun itself is an offspring, is affiliated, I don't know exactly, but it is definitely affiliated with PFLP, the Popular Front Liberation for Palestine. This is a well-known, designated everywhere terrorist organization that is known for hijacking planes and suicide bombings. They share one of the leaders who is actually Charlotte Kate's husband, who also resides here in Vancouver. His name is Khaled Barakat. So he is both PFLP and Samidoun leader. Charlotte Kate herself, she is originally an American, but now both they live here. They are behind a lot of the protests, a lot of the student activity in Canada. They have appeared in multiple events praising terrorism just in general, praising hijacking planes. Charlotte Kate herself has been seen in Vancouver Art Gallery rally on the end of April, praising the glorious operation of October 7. Again, I don't have the exact quote, but she was arrested a few days after. She was one of the organizers of the encampment at UBC as well, although she's not a student at all. And since then, her condition for her release was that she's not to attend any rallies. It's a very basic common sense. If you receive a human rights award from the Islamic regime of Iran, that one of the most brutal regime to its own people that vows to destroy Israel, that tells something about who this person is and what organization they stand for. They are not making it a secret, so it's really hypocritical of our current government that they refuse to ban Samidoun. Samidoun operates as a charitable organization in Canada. There are multiple petitions over the years to ban it, to designate it as terrorist, to deport its leaders, but they are allowed to basically do all sorts of activities. And honestly, it's endangering all of us, not just Jews. Jews just feel it a lot more personal because they target us first. But in their latest rally, they distributed brochures explaining how to commit mass terrorist attack, for example. So they're obviously trying to incite violence inside Canada as well, not just against Jews, but just as a definition of terrorism against everyone. And I hope this will be a moment when more Canadians finally wake up and see how dangerous it is for all of us.
If you'd like to stand with any rational person in Canada who believes that foreigners shouldn't be able to come here and burn our nation's flag and celebrate terrorism, then go to our special website called deporthamas.com. And as you saw from this report, there are many who believe they are Hamas on Canadian soil.